Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 45 of the Cathode Ray Podcast. We're back at it again. I got my man, my homeboy Steve over there. How you doing, homeboy Steve?
Just chilling here.
Just chilling.
Just
with
chilling.
Nutman.
Chilling here with the dogs in the CRT bunker, trying to figure out life, the meaning of it all.
It's my CRT crib, boy.
And that's it. That's right. So lots been going on this week. It's kind of a fun chance for us to get back together quickly and talk about what's been going on. So I'm happy. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I want to go, let's talk a little bit about what we did this week, but let's start with our recap from last week. Let's dive straight into it. So our episode last week where Steve gave a financial and business-oriented breakdown of how much it would cost to buy the 25 CRTs from the Gov auction, the 27-inch CRTs that greatly complicates the transport and storage options of being so huge. So we kind of break through that, and it was very interesting. When we recorded the episode, first of all, we hadn't got to the final amount, and then it was also interesting to hear some feedback from people. So you had put numbers around 800, was it, Steve, last week?
Oh, yeah. When we finally got down to it, I suggested if anybody, if you're coming onto the show here today late and you want to go check out that episode, just go look at the last episode and that specific section towards the second half where Lewis and I go through and do a great dissection of exact cost that it would be to actually acquire all these CRTs. And this would have been if I would have done the job. So at the end of the day, the cost to get them was somewhere around $400 a piece was the actual cost for a business owner. But of course, you need to make money, pay taxes, yada, yada. So we were around $800 just for selling it. Like $650 to $800 was kind of the range, depending on what the price finished out at for that. And the interesting thing is our recording date was the 15th, which happened to be about 7 hours before this auction closed.
Right. So right at the end. And so we know 800 was what when we were recording, and then it went for 1,700. But tell us, Steve, first of all, we were looking a little bit at the bid history, which is very interesting. But also before that, what are the fees that would have been added on to 1,700?
Okay, so at the end of this whole thing, this auction of 25 did finish up at the final price was $1,525. Oh. That was the actual bid. Okay, but the $1,715.62. There's a buyer's premium of $192 or 12.5%. That was added to that sold amount, so that's where you get the total of $1,715 for the whole lot. All right. So that was the finished price there, and the good thing is since our show was filmed before this, there's no way we can be blamed for manipulating the price on this, right?
That's all right. Was it us?
No.
But what about the bid history then? Because we were looking down that. Because so Gov Auctions is showing you every bid every time. Is it showing you a graph or just the raw numbers?
Well, let's do everybody a favor here who happens to have the ability to see what we can see on my screen. And we shall do a share here. And I'll bring up the actual bid history, the finalized thing here. And what we see here is, again, the sold amount, the buyer's premium. It doesn't tell us the high bidder, but it's interesting because it does tell us their first and last monikers. So what that means is we can tell which bidders are fighting.
Yes, K6 and BU.
K6 and BU, those were the last two that were fighting, but it's kind of interesting that BU was only there at the end, right?
Huh.
So anyway, you look at this a lot and see, no, BU was there early, right? BU was there early. So maybe
BU was who was the earliest? Go right down to the bottom. Who was making first bids?
Here's the interesting thing when we talked, and Lewis and I started looking at this a little bit heavier. This auction was not a 2-day auction, meaning it didn't start the 14th and just close on the 15th. This auction was there a long time before the 14th. These are usually anywhere from 1 week to a month sometimes that these government auctions will be open. So there was this incredible time where no one really had any interest in this lot until February 14th, which happened to be, all this is lovely logged right here for us. You could tell their bidding started at 11:36 a.m. at $1 by this person, and then they came back later in the afternoon, up their bid, and then there's our BU finally jumping in.
Okay, he starts coming along.
9.
What was the time of the final? Sorry, go right to the top.
So
What was the final?
and then if you
Not
go,
spoil the end.
it's 2:15, 5 o'clock.
5:06 in the morning is
No,
when it ends.
this is
next day.
I'm sorry, not in the morning. This is the next evening.
day.
So 5 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm thinking this is Eastern Standard Time since this was in the Eastern.
So my point is then it only picked up in the last 36 hours. The first bid happened in the last 36 hours of this auction for it even to get to $1.
Wow. Yeah, it wasn't even 36 hours. It was less than that if you think about it. I mean, it was right because it would have had to have been 5 in the morning. So it was 6 hours after that. So it was 30 hours. 30 hours from the first bid.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know anything about this personally till I got a DM in Patreon from someone sharing it with me. But the interesting thing that I also found was that on Twitter that this auction was shared by the Save the CRTs Twitter account on the morning of 2/14. So that account found the auction and then posted it. And it's the thing about Twitter is now they give you all these great statistics. It was posted at 6:46 a.m. on February 14th. And then, the same time they posted a link to the actual auction right under it. So it shows you over the other thing it shows you is how many times that tweet got some good traction. It got seen over 77,000 times. I'm sure some of that has been after, but it got 77,000 views. And then it says the actual government deals link that was on the thread there got 5,000 views. And if we see here, it shows that the site had 4,000 visits. So that's a good trickle down effect of how you can see the statistics. Now it would have been awesome to see how many people had visited this.
Yeah, we don't see that history,
to this, right? Prior to this being shared, we don't see the history of the visits. But I don't know. I mean, I'm wondering which one of these accounts is like the buyers club that was about to get it. Were they the BU, right?
Yeah.
So there was a club or people that were trying to get together and buy it.
Yeah.
And then I think that even the Save CRTs posted when the auction closed the next day that they missed out and were really close to getting it, but it just didn't happen. And I'm not sure whether it was them who bailed out at this point or if they were this
Are they
earlier
BU or
are
they
they LS, right? Because they're not K6 because K6 won and nobody that we know so far has stepped forward. As being K6. I don't know what K6 is.
This is some spy shit, bro. Look at the Soviet Union files here.
I mean, if we were like dark web masters, I'm sure we could just hack this site and get all this clearly, right? So that just anyway, it's
so go down to the bottom again because it turns out that the tweet went out 5 hours after the tweet goes out. The first bid happens.
Yeah.
So someone puts that $1 on 5 hours after the tweet. It's the first ever bid. So that's 80, and then eventually, BU's kicking in at number 4 at the $9 range. So BU was interested when it was only $9.
Yes, I'm trying to see who else is in here, and it looks like BU's in here. Then you get D6.
Dude, is it too much?
BU, BU, LS. I think that, or they could have been, they could have been LS because that's when LS starts bidding. It's LS, BU, and K6 are like the 3 main back bidders, right? Everybody else on this site is just single bidding or the bid starters. They're not really in it.
First of all, I just want to remind everyone that we're just taking the piss here, right? And we mean no disrespect.
Oh yeah,
to save the CRTs.
No.
Really, bro, we're just having fun.
Yeah, we're
and
just
we
looking
respect,
at these,
what you
actual
do.
things that are
and
happening.
just because I just thought I just wanted to point that out, so it's really clear to everyone because we're just having fun. We're all just having, it's cool effort that you guys wanted to get together. But because I wanted to just look through that person to save the CRT's tweets and see did they confirm yep, group bid in. And then correlate that to a time. But maybe they would have been bidding under the surface.
Oh, yeah. You mean
you
could connect a time they might have said how much they bid and when it's
what
bid?
We got, 14.
Oh, the insane thing here is you can look down right at the last. Look at this. Within the last 15 minutes of the bid. Look at the last 15 minutes of bidding. Okay? That's awesome.
Yeah. Boom, it all happens.
It all happens. You get a $500 bid here. And then within the next 15 minutes, it goes up $1,000.
So
that's
wait,
mainly because of 3 people bidding
15,
on this.
Go down further to 15. Scroll down the list. I want to see the 15 around. What was the first bid on the 15th? At 12 in the morning. 12 in the.
Oh yeah, 12. That's right at the in the morning.
And then no one bids for 12 hours, right? See there?
Yeah. No. Yes, you're right.
Someone bids just after midnight on it,
and then someone bids after lunchtime.
No action till midday the next day,
and then no action or nothing till later on, right before it closes.
Right, because Save the CRTs was tweeting about this at 3:25 in the morning. So they were tweeting about saying, hey, we're going to have a syndicate at 3:25. So obviously no one at all, I'm not saying anybody at CRT, had taken an action till midday. So I think maybe who bid at midday? Wait, I'm CSI, bro. Get Roger on the line. I'm going deep Soviet style here.
Not at midday on the 15th?
Oh, it's someone random. It's
yeah, it's just a J6 or an E9, which is not in it later. I would have thought they would have been in it more than, but K6, they could have been K6, right?
But K6 won.
No,
so
you're
it's
right.
Not
It's
Save
not
the
K6.
CRTs.
I'm sorry.
So it's LS maybe? See,
I was looking at the
Fox Mulder here. You got to be on the money, my friend.
No, this is it. And please, like Lewis said, we're just having fun with this. We're not. This is just nothing malicious or anything intended from this. We're all just. I just found it really intriguing because a lot of times, unfortunately, you want to do something cool like do a group buy, but then so many people see it, and somebody else out there obviously either had a group buy or had an intention to buy all these and was willing to go up really high because they did go up pretty high.
I think the thing you're also alluding to is the difficult situation that someone like a group like Save the CRTs, excellent, they want to do. This is God's work that they are absolutely doing. But to spread the good word and find new faithful and to spread the good word of CRTs, they have to publicize CRTs, and to make us interested and get us involved, they have to tell the world. You've got to yell it to everybody, not just the few faithful in front of you. And I think that's a tough balance that anyone in a situation like that, any preserver, because I would say, hey, we want maybe to get these things out in the open. We want to push forward the ideas of preservation, of getting them. Maybe more people can now understand, hey, for $70 you can get a screen. That's a cool thing. But as we saw, these tweets could have an effect on bid history.
Yeah, you never know. It does. It happens. Well, it does happen all the time because Shank's always yelling at me, stop making videos about this stuff, or I'll be like, what are you doing, Shank? Oh, I'm not telling you because you'll make a video about it and then it'll be impossible to find. And just like you did with that PVM tuner that lets you do RF on the PVM.
He's salty about that.
And so I'm not allowed to. He and I have a running joke, but look, if I have to hear it, other people have to hear it. Once you become a social media presence, especially in a smaller community, and you become more well known, this stuff happens. You become your own worst enemy when it comes down to certain things. Sometimes where you'll just run into a situation like this where it looks like maybe the person who wound up buying this, maybe they would have known about it. Maybe they had no idea about it till after the tweet was shared. I have no idea.
Sure. So by publicizing, you access people who may be interested in your syndicate, but B, people who may go, I'm going to just totally bid against you, and it's quite hard to separate those two, unfortunately.
Right. So that's anyway. It's all
cool,
again
man.
good fun, and it's really cool to see it happen. If anybody who I think Lewis and I will again put an open invite to anybody out there that if you are K6. Or if you're one of these other top bidders and you want to talk about your experience,
and
if we can vet you and you're good, the right person for real who did it, we'd love to talk about it.
Can we help you? Can we help guide you so you understand what you're in for and the little traps that might come along the way? So, when you're doing these bids, maybe we can make sure they really happen, right? They really can help.
Yeah. I would have thought. I would think, like, personally, to me, if I had found out about that, I found out about the auction, and that I wouldn't have. If I would have been serious about buying it, I wouldn't have posted it out there. Really, because that wouldn't make sense.
Well, be real with it, Steve. If people sign up to your Patreon and they get updates of various sets,
like
if you're going to buy it, you're not going to tell your patrons about it, right?
Well, I would have told, if I was going to buy it, I would have told them, and everybody who has on there would have had first dibs to anything. That's kind of the way. I mean, that's what I do on my Patreon is if I find good listings that come available that are a good deal or something, I share them in the Patreon. And then if you go even further than that, then there's a private Discord where people beyond just me are sharing regional stuff all the time in those sales groups between each other. And that's just a good benefit where if you are looking for something, the biggest thing is not that there are good deals that come available for certain CRTs and PVMs. It's where are they? It's because most of the time this is stuff you don't really want to ship or that's not being willing to be shipped. But sometimes they'll come in at half or less than half price. You find the listing, and it's just about timing. Then are you in the area, and are you ready to buy it? And then it comes available and you take advantage of that really good deal. Because these are deals that most of the time I would buy if I one I looked at today was a 2530 PVM, and it was, I think, $700, but it was in Texas or something. So they're not willing to ship. I don't need it at this moment. And so share that out there. That's a good price.
So they only wanted a pickup.
Right.
So
it's like, so there's that. And then there's a super nice BVM, Sony A BVM on eBay right now that the auction ends by tomorrow. And it's a A20, which is the multi-format. And it's got the RGB card, and it says it's got a new installed tube in it. So it's got all these good things. It's only at like $1,000, but again, it's not shipping, and it's in New York.
Okay.
So maybe somebody
Brooklyn Video Game should be all over that shit, baby.
Well, they'll so there's a whole example of some things that I found today that are just too far out of the way for me to really deal with. So I try to pass that on to everybody else that's in that is a benefit to them.
I have that issue on a micro scale at a different level, because in my collection of CRTs, there's only one thing that I think I'm really missing that I regret, and I don't have a 16:9 widescreen CRT. And I really want one, and I think I've missed my opportunity around here with the market. I've missed the CRT sales have really dried up over here, and I've talked a lot over the years. We've been doing this podcast. Things are pretty good. Well, the golden age has come to an end, and there's still stuff out there. I found a Panasonic, a 16:9 Panasonic, and it seems pretty reasonable, like fairly solid. But if I came across a Trinitron, I'd like that as well, and I don't want to have to fucking haul a Panasonic, get it up to my storage room, and then in 6 months I find a Trinitron, and now I've got two friggin' 16:9 screens. So I'm very hesitant now that's my story about buying.
Yeah.
those CRTs. I went to, also this week, because I was cleaning out my storage room, I went to the recycle center with my buddy. My Australian buddy's here. I said, hey, I need your help. I got a van. We went to my storage room. I've got the full couch out of it now, my grill, and there's still a case. I was giving them away to the recycle center. I'm very happy for them to whatever. And we unloaded everything at the recycle center. And then as they're leaving, you go past the garage that has the electronics in it. And I jammed on the brakes, and my mate was like, don't go get a monitor. No, don't. No, I know what you're doing. Don't. And I'm like, shut up, I'm going. And so I ran around, and there was a really big, I want to say 27-inch or something, square Sony Trinitron in there, but it was wet. And probably it could be dried out, but I have almost that exact same screen in my storage room already that my friend had just helped me move. So I was going to have little chance of convincing him that I need his help to move a wet version of the thing I already have. So I had to leave it there. And that was another one of I think of those points, like you can't save all of them. There's going to be days where they're just done for and you can't take them all in. You must have this all the time, Steve.
Yeah, it's weird because now we're coming, like you're over there where things look like they're drying up. And I do hear this a lot from people over in Europe. It seems like the last probably 6 months more than any time that I've been in the CRT and PVM or high-level CRT market, and that's that it's really become difficult to find any pro monitors in Europe. That's what most people are telling me. But over here, we're finding 25 new JVCs. On the government.
Coming out of the wood. Well, there's Consumer Pro. Let's distinguish
right.
there.
So here's the thing. There's always going to be some level, maybe not always, but at least for the next 20 years, you're going to have people pulling out consumer CRTs out of their attics, out of their storage units, and it's just going to be coming on the market, and that's what it's going to be. I feel like there's definitely nothing as far as I've talked about it here. My connections with recyclers. It's been years since they've contacted me even back and told me that they have anything relevant to what I'm asking for. And so I know that part is hard. I feel like right now, if you are wanting a CRT and you're starting over, you need to do your best to find a PC CRT that's good and start there.
Because that you'll still find for $5, $10, $20.
Yeah,
no
and you can do a lot with it. You can keep it for more, if you get the right one, you can keep it for a lot of different things and get high resolutions into it. And pair it with things that are easily obtainable, right? Even just if it's the little GBS control that we have. Yeah. It pairs up perfectly with that for retro stuff. And then beyond that, look locally for the CRT that you want, like you're doing. But it is getting, it's getting more difficult that, or less frequent that you're seeing these just stories of PVM showing up on the wild. Really, a lot of these things.
Part of the difference here is not just where they are in different sorts of the world. First of all, America is this huge country, as big as Europe all on its own. And I dare say, and also back in the day, a lot of these countries developing. Eastern Europe, half of Europe was like, they weren't having PVMs back then.
Right.
So there's this much smaller install base of these things. And I think it's also important to differentiate pro and consumer. And okay, in Estonia, barely any pros. I got the few that were still here. But consumer, I have this bullshit theory about why I had this gold rush of gold times of CRTs recently. And it's got to do with population size. In America, you have this huge market, and you can, at a reasonable rate, ship. 200, 250, you can use your U-ship. It does somewhat create a larger market. Still very local, but the larger it is, the harder it's to ship. Europe's super disconnected. Yes, I can get a ship between countries, but that's even more of a pain. So what I've got is small Estonia, and I've got this real small market of about 1 million people, because I probably don't even get a TV from the country below in Latvia, probably just sourcing them locally. And why I think that we had a renaissance, golden age of CRTs in the last 2 years was that it was in the 90s in Estonia, they had just come out of the communism. So early on, 91, all that, the Berlin Wall falls, Soviet Union goes away, and they are the free country of Estonia again. And it's crazy times, but no one's got no money at all. They are poor as fuck, but they're working hard. They're trying to rebuild their countries after 50 years of communism. They're doing their best. And in those situations, what I think can happen is when you are building up your wealth, like everyone in a country at a time, affordable luxuries become interesting to you like that. And I think that one affordable luxury that I noticed was there's so many shitty bathrooms in Estonia that had like weird jets placed all over them and a cabin with a spa, and like it was an affordable luxury that people thought was fancy. So that in these old communist blocks, there's all these weird showers that I just want a bit of water, man, that comes over me, but there's fucking jets going up your ass and shit, and they come out everywhere. And I think it's the same phenomenon that happened with really nice CRTs. Back in those days, into the 95 to 2000, in Estonia, that was an affordable luxury for people. So they were more willing to spend that money and be like, yeah, I got a fancy TV. It's something I can actually get now. New money is another way to put it. They were all fucking new money, and they spent it on CRT. So that's what I think caused those really nice times, because we talked on this podcast for last couple of years. I've been all like, I got the fucking SCART RGBs over here. I got shitloads of them. And now my time has come as well. That, of course, that pool has dried up over time. Lewis is probably not going to get his 16:9 Trinitron for a while. It just, I've saved for the winter. I've prepared. Winter is coming, and I knew winter was coming, and I stocked up in my storage room. So, it's tough if you're just getting into the market now. I appreciate you've got to, be realistic. We don't want to go for the scalpers, but 50 or 100 sometimes might be what you might have to pay for something reasonable.
Within CRTs, we are fortunate for a couple of things about this particular piece of electronics and the history, and how for nearly 100 years, this was the display. This was the display technology. There wasn't really anything else. And that meant that in the 90s and early 2000s, people in America, you have a lot of towns that have, millions of people in them, cities, and then towns that will have 1 million people in them. Well, every person in America like that, all of them had multiple CRT televisions and monitors, combined per household. And on average, they would have multiples of these. Mm-hmm. And just because I don't have any idea, but you have to think that there would have had to have been nearly 1 billion of these things sold in just within like a 5-year period. Every 5 years, I bet 1 billion of them sold in the United States. You got 200 million people probably buying them. Mm-hmm. And the reason, now you could also say the same thing as other stuff. You could try to say, well, what about telephones? Everybody had multiple telephones that were old. But when we moved to cell phones, now all the telephones, there's not as many of them around. But the difference is the telephone is a very easy piece of equipment to break down and recycle. Boom.
You're out.
We're lucky, and it sounds crazy, we're lucky that it is still almost impossible to safely recycle a CRT tube. So that in itself has prevented a lot of these things from just disappearing, because they're so big, they're so hard to get away, they're so hard to get rid of. For a long time they were. And
how many people how many people listening to this, ask yourself, dear listeners, have got your CRT because it was sitting in someone's basement or their back room and they couldn't be fucked moving it, so it was there for way too long, and that's how you got access to that CRT. I think it's a fairly common story in our community.
Yeah, or the joke is it's always grandma's TV. Yeah. I mean, before I was into this at all, and I was an insurance agent, I would go into homes and you'd still see all kinds. It would be older people during the day. You go meet with them about their insurance. They'd still have the old tube TV in the cabinet right there in the main room. They weren't even watching it. It would just be there, like turned off like everything else. But just like my grandparents, they had this 1960s record player thing in their living room. And while I was alive, they never used it. It just stayed there, right? It was just there. It probably didn't work at that point, but it was a piece of furniture for the most part and just stayed.
So there's a lot.
There's still a lot. There's still there's still a bunch of CRTs out there. It's just now people have aggressively, for it's almost been 8 years probably, people have started to aggressively go out and try to find anything that's a pro CRT CRT in the wild place where it's not buying it off eBay. It's like those avenues have almost been completely exhausted, where you go through and you try to call all the local news stations or video editing houses and see if they have anything left. Those days have to be almost long gone at this point.
But that doesn't apply for consumer sets. I think
No.
We're also getting to is there's still a lot of gold in them dar hills that is waiting to be mined, and the more expensive they come, in theory, says the more of them will come out of the woodwork because someone, all of a sudden, $50 is enough for somebody like, I'll fucking lift that thing. I will actually get it out there and sold. Like, $75? Yeah. Okay, now I'm really motivated. So in theory, a price rise should put a few more on the market because we're reasonably certain there's a hidden inventory out there, because they just have to be, if you look at the sales figures.
Yeah, and you have an easier time right now selling, I'm sure, any CRT that works that's 20 inches or less. You could sell that easier than any early LCD screen, right? HDMI, big fat, thick crap. Exactly. So if you're looking back where a lot of people will still try to locally sell theirs, at least, so it does keep them from just ending up dumped.
Sure. So this ratio there, like you kind of, as you were alluding to, 20 inches and above, it's because the larger the CRT, they're not all created equal. The larger the CRT, the harder it is to ship. The smaller it is, the easier it is to ship, and the larger addressable market. A 9-inch PVM, you can ship that across the country pretty easily, right? So I would imagine the prices of those, this is my theory, my economic bullshit theory, that those would stabilize because there's more of those available to ship around the larger market, where I can imagine larger price fluctuations in 20-inch and larger because the average bloke is just not shipping that. Do I win the Nobel Prize?
There's no way. I mean, I just had it happen to me where I got a 20-inch, bought it, and I begged this person to send it anyway, but we'll just send it through we know how to pack it. It doesn't matter. If they send it through ground, it's busted. And unless they really do know how to pack it, and they did not. But there's the 20-inch and above are becoming, it's like more unobtainium, right? Mm-hmm. The 13 inches is the perfect size just about, because you can move those PVMs or around that size pretty easily. You can still pack those. It's very doable to pack those and ship those if you have to, some kind of ground. But people will get that, and even if they have the best 13-inch, they'll always be wondering what it's like to have that 20-inch one. Sure. And so that's the key format that so many of them were made in, that size. And so that's always going to be probably, the high end horsepower of the
so people get
CRT
more inspired,
market.
Right? So the theory goes over time that I'm going to have a 14-inch, and then the FOMO grows that we know is a real thing that exists, and so that will eventually slowly prop up people will be more inspired to get a 20 or something like that. I wanted to ask you about what were your experiences shipping CRTs from Japan, because I think this is a really interesting thing. Roger's just got 2.
Yeah.
And apparently they came in fine. That he got 2 14-inch PVMs for about like 200 each or something shipped. Do you have the inside scoop on what he's? Oh, there he is.
This turd.
So he's the new guy. He's the young guy, isn't he?
Right.
What's his name again?
Cole,
Cole,
the pug.
Aw.
So, yeah, my experience was random. I bought 2 PVMs, 13-inch ones, off an eBay seller that was one of these shady, weird eBay sellers. It was first time I bought off them. It was a Olympus 13-inch medical grade PVM, very nice, and but it was in Japanese on the back and stuff, So there's a Japanese model, but those particular monitors were sold all over the world, and everything it works from 100 volts to 240 volts. Any kind of video format that's a major video format and analog will be supported with these PAL, NTSC, CCAM, and even the other stuff. So that one I had no worries about, even though it was the Japanese version. But I thought it was weird that they were selling it, and it said that it was being shipped to me from New York. And so I bought it, and then it was one day, and then it was shipped. And it was they only charged me $40 for shipping. I mean, I got a great deal on it. It was like $300 total.
This is really interesting.
And
but where did the eBay you said it was shipped out of New York? Is that what the listing said?
That's what the listing said. Yes, this ships out of New York.
Okay, cool.
And I got the shipment in, and I looked at the box, and it looked just like Roger's box, where it had a red piece of tape on going each way that was in Japanese characters written on it. And I looked at the shipping label, and it said it came from Osaka and that it had been shipped out within 24 hours. So it had been flown from Osaka, Japan to my door in less than 24 hours.
Roger said it was very fast, within days, to say he has a similar experience. Yeah. So how would they do it?
I'd imagine it would have been harder for Roger because he's maybe in the center of the country. So maybe it took an extra day to drive there, where I'm on the coastline, and maybe it was a little bit easier for them to get a truck to me.
So how is this deal working? The eBay auction says shipped out of New York. Is it being drop shipped or being sent via New York? Do you think that's just a fucking lie? And the guy's just saying
I don't know how.
To make you feel
I don't know
better?
how they have. Someone told me they thought they had an office there, and that's how they possibly set it up, or they have some kind of business address in New York.
Okay.
Or, but yeah, it did not make a lot of sense to me how it actually, happened like that. So,
how was the?
Let's
the
see
box?
here. The box was great because I actually had to reuse the box to ship to someone else. This was a box that they had taken, and they had done there's the liquefied bags that you like break open and they become foam around the item. They had used probably the biggest one I'd ever seen because it went over the entire top, all the PVM except the very bottom of it. Like it went all the way down the sides, all the way down, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is perfect." It's like a solid thing, just for the PVM, and then it had another one on the bottom that was flat. And like I said, I was actually able to reuse that with another 13-inch and ship it fine. So that one, I don't know what I'm actually looking at the
I'll tell you what,
transactions.
I'm just going to get a drink of water again.
Okay.
Do the research, and then we'll
I'll keep going on it.
All right.
Okay. I went and I looked up this seller. And because they're still on eBay, this is an old account, been around since 2002, and have 100% feedbacks. And they're selling all kinds of retro Japanese electronics right now, and that's what they say they specialize in. So actually, one thing I found on here is a Sony Trinitron. It says CPS 14 F1 MSX monitor that they've got for sale on here. And so they obviously sell these things. If you could see the price, it's probably backwards. It's $900.
Okay.
Plus $57 shipping, right? And I look at this, and it says they're in Garden City, New York.
Okay.
So I guarantee you that if you bought this item, it would come shipped in a box, probably from Japan, just like the other ones. I'm thinking.
This is interesting. So, first of all, deceptive, I don't know, misleading, whatever. However, it doesn't seem to be necessarily a bad thing at first.
They're
So
not. You're not paying exorbitant amounts of shipping. I don't even know how many, but that's about how much. That's how much they charged me. Was actually $43.76 to pack that CRT and ship it, which doesn't make any
breakdown?
sense.
Yeah,
That doesn't make any sense because I mean, I wouldn't. The materials alone. If you're a big time seller, you could get the material costs down to 20%, probably what it cost me. But still, even at 20%, there's no way I think you could do it for less than $15 in materials. It would have cost me $60 in materials to pack it the way they did. Maybe, about 60, I would think. And so the shipping, if I went to a ground shipper and shipped from here to New York, they could do that box for probably $80 or something for me. Now, they would give this person a discount. So I don't know. They must have some deep discounts, but still, I don't see how they're doing it. That's a lot of that's a lot.
If someone who's listening could comment, maybe does Japan have a subsidized
tariffs,
thing,
something like that?
Are they doing? I mean, unless they're pulling some fuckery where part of the sale price is meant to be used as a chunk of that, but then is that their psychology that they've worked out that a smaller delivery fee is more like a higher upfront fee and a smaller delivery fee makes people feel better? Is that some psychology? Because people would often say the opposite psychology is right. Make a smaller fee and then whack up the shipping, and it doesn't feel as bad. I don't know.
It's very strange. And I would think that Roger, which we'll get some information from him, his cost is probably more realistic on how much it would cost. Whatever he had to pay the shipping to get it over here. The ones he bought.
Yeah. So,
but
he said it was...
again, like you say, you don't know. The local economy there could have deals set up for local vendors, and then they have a license to sell in New York State, and they have a storefront there, and they just ship from a different location.
Do you have any import charges that you would have?
No.
You have. Okay, so even if they pull it as some
normally.
New York scam, there wouldn't even normally be, even if it said coming from Osaka.
There's not. We don't get like VAT, like the
okay.
taxes on imports. Usually, you probably would if it was something specific that you had that has to have it.
Oh, okay, right.
But I don't know.
Cigarettes. You start importing cigarettes, they're gonna fucking get you. Yeah.
Booze or cheese from Europe that is only allowed to be coming from one area.
Like that.
Yeah. I don't think that this is the same thing. Well, so
there's no tax on it.
Yeah.
And then, so, because I'm sort of getting a little bit interested. I think my overall point here was that I know your story, and then Roger told me he got 2 today, and I'm starting to get jealous here.
Yeah.
Of you guys getting all these new PVMs from Japan, and I'm like, why aren't I on this scam? I got to get in on this deal. But Roger said he used Buyee, which might be. It's a totally different idea, but they looked really similar. Maybe there's some kind of thing going on, because you said Roger's boxes look real similar,
like the
but
same.
Roger bought it through Buyee, the same. So Buyee is a proxy, a physical proxy. So you've got to pay the Japanese guy to Buyee warehouse and then Buyee to you fee. But it's very, unless that's just how
you
Japanese
think there's just
people
one
box.
seller of this stuff? Is there just one international seller of PVMs?
Maybe, but he's your eBay guy, right? Unless some guy's like,
but why would he sell
on
Yahoo auctions, or is there...
Maybe someone's doing that. Maybe he's got some sort of deal that he picks them up on Yahoo auctions and then sells them through his eBay page, and somehow he's just still a total drop shipper in the middle of this. Who knows not the deal. I mean, it seems to be working, so I don't want to say negative. Right on,
no. This was much better because then I bought PVMs from people here, and they pack them stupid, and they're going nowhere. But that is an interesting thing. I I've overnight shipped one PVM that was shipped from here in Virginia across the country to like Seattle, Washington. Mm-hmm. And it was overnight shipped. And so that means it was flown. And I want to say it cost $600.
No.
$600. And the person wanted to do it. And I was talking with Ryan from Castlemania Games, and we thought maybe they had it was when there was a convention, like right before a convention was coming up. We thought maybe they wanted it for a convention booth and had to have it. But it was interesting because I was like, well, they're only paying, if it's a business expense, you're only paying $400 more than for me to ship it. And if I ship it from here to there across the entire country, it's a big risk that's so far for a ground shipper that would be a lot harder to make sure it didn't break.
Sure.
But if it's being flown, that's the whole key.
It's like flown from Japan for $40 apparently.
It's flown, and it's not just being like thrown into a sort house, I guess, where the people in those places that have worked in them have sent me messages saying that when you ground ship things in America, it goes into these like hubs, and when it does, it actually goes up a conveyor. And then all the boxes just are automatically fall off this conveyor edge, and they either land on other boxes or they land on the floor. So they said that the most it could be like a 5-foot drop. So I'm sure that a lot of times that PVM box, I'll look at it like one I just got. It looks like it comes up and it's just like boom right on the ground on the concrete, and it was doomed from the start. And then that's why probably sometimes you get ones that are packed terribly that still make it, because they happen to be the very last one on the edge, and they just land on everybody else's boxes and they just crush all their stuff. But the PVM's okay because it got caught by all the other people's boxes.
I was talking to this week. Actually, it's a good time for me to segue into this one. So I did another solo podcast this week, and I did it with this. He's a Czech guy, comes from the Czech Republic, but he grew up in Switzerland, and now he's working for a game studio in Tokyo. And his name is, what goes by the name FG Software. His name is Antoine. And I knew of him because he makes NES homebrew, which is pretty cool. But also, he bought one of the PVMs that I found in Japan. So the story goes that I found the PV. It had PVM and the DV player, digital video player, in outside of Tokyo, and it was $150. And I'm like, I'm really sure this works. I'm pretty sure of it. And what had happened is Antoine had seen that tweet of mine and remembered that he had seen that exact monitor in that exact store several months before, and it was $300. And now $300 is still not terrible for a 14-inch PVM and a working DV player. And so I think it goes that he gets to the store and he's like to the manager, hey, can I test this? And so the two of them are plugging shit in and making it work, and they couldn't make the DV player work. Like, they both genuinely tried, couldn't make it work. So the guy gave him the discount, and so then it was down to $150. But then he gets it home, and they later on realizes that it was just a switch on the DV player. That the thing works fine. He wasn't trying to be dishonest. They just totally both couldn't work it out. So I saw then days later Anton's posts, and he had to go out to this store in the middle of buttfuck, get the PVM, do that. He took a taxi to the train station, the train all through the Tokyo subway and shit with his 14-inch PVM, and then took a train from the train station to took a taxi from the train station to his home again. And we were talking about like our ongoing discussions about CRTs and their different sizes. You can't move at 27, but like you were saying last week, if they were 14-inch monitors, there'd be a completely different story. Now, 14-inch PVM, yes, I could move it off the truck. I could get it out of Gov Auctions warehouse. But when I've got to walk it, like 2 blocks later, I'm like, fuck this. I don't want to carry a 14-inch PVM. There's even limits to that, right? So he took the taxi, and even by the time he got paid the taxi, the subway's pretty cheap, and then the taxi other end, he still got a steal of a deal with this 14-inch PVM. So that's how we bonded over that story, and I did a podcast with him. So yeah, look, if you're this deep into the Cathode Ray podcast, you might like to listen to the other episode that I did with Antoine. He's not like a famous guy, but he also does NES homebrew, some pretty impressive stuff, and he's released several games. He codes for the NES, codes for the PC Engine. His next effort is on PC Engine, and lives in Japan and speaks perfect Japanese. So he's a fascinating dude, and just someone that I thought wanted to get to know. So yeah, that'll be on the same feed and the same channel or the same audio feed if you're listening or watching this at home. So that's what I was doing with this guy, having another PVM related story from Japan.
Well, that's good. And it's always, I really enjoyed seeing that happen. I remember when we saw that he had gotten it and started tweeting about it. I thought that was really cool. So I think it's a good follow-up. I'll be sure to be interested in watching it and everything. So that's great. I've just been here in America. We were laughing before we started. It's like tax season. There's some funny stuff going on too, because this year they said this is the thing they just did. They just made this new rule where if you use PayPal and these other third-party PayPal, Venmo, other avenues like that to get any kind of money for stuff, there's a function on there where it says, are you paying friends and family or are you paying for goods and services?
Yeah.
Well, if you had a PayPal business account that you set up as business, they just flat out got rid of the friends and family. Okay. And so if you everything then is going to be thrown into business. But what the business thing does is it tracks your amount of money that comes in. If it gets over $600 or more, they're sending you a tax form, and they're sending the IRS, the government, a tax form too that says you got this money. Yeah. And this was the first year where we were supposed to report it all and say, retract your expenses like a business owner. But there's a lot of people that just use PayPal and we're like, we don't know, we sold our couch for $600 and then now we're getting a tax bill. So the IRS says, oh, well, you're going to get a 1099. Just ignore it. And I'm like, just ignore it. What happens? What happens in 2 or 3 years where they're like, yeah, remember we told you to ignore it? You should have known better than to ignore that. It's against the law to not report all the income. We're coming back and we're auditing everybody. And I was laughing because I got a 1099 from PayPal, and it's like $3,600, which is one of 12 of these documents I get for being a small business owner. Yeah. I get a bunch of these, and that's how I get a full report of income, as opposed to most people working one job, get one tax document back and forth. So I'm like, I'm sure as hell not reporting this income, even though they said not to. I'm like, I'm not going to just, I just ignored that because you guys told me to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a shady, ridiculous system. But anyway, that's while you've been having fun, that's what I've been looking at this week. And
yeah, you got to deal with that. It's so weird because so many other little things. There's no PVMs around here, and that it's gray weather. But on the other hand, I don't have tax problems.
Well, I don't have problems, thankfully.
No problems.
But it is work. Yeah, you definitely have to have.
I don't have to do nothing.
Yeah.
I go to my web bank, my net bank. It's all my tax information already filled in for me because socialistic, communistic governments know everything about you. So I don't give a shit. So it's already filled in, and I just go yes, and I usually don't have to pay anything, or I get a little back, and I'm done. Tax done. No TurboTax bullshit.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Well, think about it. Think about how much TurboTax themselves makes so much money in the United States that they will fight with every lobbying dollar they can to keep the tax code as complex and crazy as possible. That's why it's simplified tax code. No, those entities are out there to make money from it. They're billions of dollars. They're not just going to say, okay, let's go to an easy, simple code where we don't exist anymore. So, that's going on. It's also getting into, I've been going more and more. I've been feeling a lot better, so that's all been good. Good. I've been going more to these, the college basketball games. The ones I got kicked out of, I told you last year.
I love it.
I'm not banned for life, thankfully. They let me come back there.
Have you seen this man?
Yeah.
Fucking hold the screen.
Hey.
Don't let him in.
I watched a whole documentary about the guy who owns the New York Knicks. And in Madison Square Garden, he has this anti-terrorist facial recognition security system. And he uses it to, like, harass these fans who come to the game who, like, talk shit about him on social media. He literally has, like, he's got this, like, 7 or 5 codes of code 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Code 5B, kick him out. But there's, like, code 3 where it's, like, send security to intimidate this fan on arrival and let them know we're watching them the whole game.
You gotta have a lot of fucking, like, oh my God, to think that you would go to that effort, like, pettiness, bro.
So I was like, thankfully, I'm just in a college town that doesn't have the ability to ban me for life from my favorite pastime of going to their
The
college
stadium
events.
owner is not Lex Luthor. Okay, it's just a guy. He doesn't hold that many grudges. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
He's cool. Buy him a beer. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah.
So you went to the game. I love these. I love the photos that you said.
Yeah.
So how is it that you got to sit where you sit?
Oh yeah,
I didn't get
So
that
this is
bit.
awesome, right? You go into these college basketball games, and I think it wants to sit. If it was full, 7,000 or 8,000. It's never 100% full, so it's average about 4,000 attendance.
It's all right.
It's like a whole lower bowl, and then there's an upper bowl, and it's indoors. It's a very nice arena. It's only like 2 or 3 years old. And you go in, and I get these ticket packs for the whole season, and this year I think I've paid $200, and I've probably gone to 25 or had 25 tickets. It's a ton of tickets. And I've gone to every home game except for maybe like 3 of them. And what you do is you trade in your ticket. It gives you upper level ticket, but the bottom, like 1/3 of the bowl in the lower area is just it's student section. So it's supposed to be like students go in and they can get a student ticket, and then it's just general admission in this area, and they don't like check your tickets at this place. So that's the greatest part about it is you can get in there early and you can go in the student section and sit courtside. Like it's under the basket, but it's under one of the baskets. So you're looking from an odd angle, you're behind the basket. So you're not like court, like 50 half court seats, but you can get real close, and it's really funny because you're sitting down there, and it's all like college students acting crazy, and then they're like, "What's up, man? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, dudes, how's it going?" And they're like,
mature age student.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh man, what's your name, man?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm
Fellow
Steve.
kids.
What's up, guys?" And they're like, "Oh, Steve, do you believe?" And they start like doing this weird stuff, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, brother, I believe. Do you believe?" And they'll just go like,
That's the screenshot. I gotta write this down. 58. That's the thumb. All right, I'm gonna send to Mason of you going, "The thing, man, the thing." Okay, so you sit there.
So I sit there with the college students, and like I bring my. And the funny thing is, like my daughter loves it. She's 7, and so it's not just me. It's usually me, her, my son, and my wife. She works at this college now, which is even more hilarious, right?
That's cool.
She works for them in another department. So we, like I said, we'll go there, and if we're there early enough, we'll go sit basically. My daughter's like, "I want to sit front row. I want to sit in the front row." And so if we're there, then if we're not there, like the last time we got there a little bit late, so we were in the 9th row, which is not, it's even better because you could see a little bit more. But yeah, that's a lot of fun. Just again, because it's all like open, and they don't, I don't know if they got like really, really good, then they'd probably start enforcing that where I wouldn't be able to go down there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like the earlier conversation where we were talking about the CRTs sharing that post and getting more people involved. It's like a double-edged sword. If this team gets really good and becomes like sold out, I'll never be able to get down there at courtside again for $10 a ticket. So
and then you just give me an old guy trying to get into the young student section. Let me in. They'll be like,
"Sir,
"No, man, get out of here.
We need your student ID right now." But the funny thing is since my wife works at this college, tell me this wouldn't be creepy. I'm allowed to go use I'm allowed to go use the workout facilities where like all the college kids go work out. Like I have a pass where I'm allowed to go in there. And I was like talking with these other men who's like their wives work at there, and they're like, yeah, we could do that. I was like, well, did you ever go? And they were like, no. And I was like, why not? And did you think you'd feel too creepy being in there? Like, who's this creepy old guy working out, right? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's what I was feeling like if I was going to go in there. People were going to be staring at me saying, who's the creepy old dude in here just
look, and let's face it, if it was you guys, it'll be like, oh god,
yeah.
It wouldn't be like cool dudes, fucking Tom Cruise and Top Gun or something.
Nothing.
You'd be like wheezing and shit.
Wheezing,
oh god,
lifting just the bar, and so I just like hang out down here and just push CRT over your head, lift them. Yeah,
I like it, man. So how often are games? When's the next one?
So games tonight, actually, and it's the second to last game of the season. And so in college basketball, the team had 31 regular season games. So roughly half those were here at home, but 31 regular season games, the team's 20 wins, 9 losses. So they're in the top. They have a big conference, top 3 team. And tonight they play the number 2 team in the conference, so it's a big game. It's like, and then after that they'll do a tournament in Florida next week, and whoever wins that gets a guaranteed spot in the NCAA tournament. And so maybe we'll get lucky and the team will do that. And if that happens, then I might have to take my son to like somewhere to go to the first round of that, because it's been since. I was looking in the rafters. It's been like since I was 5 since this team has been in the NCAA tournament. Okay. So that'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah, maybe these would be good games too because there's shit on the line here. If they win this one against the top ranked team, and then these are high stakes.
Yeah,
so maybe this is you gonna go tonight?
Yeah, we're going tonight. I've got tickets tonight,
nice.
And then we went last Saturday, which was the same kind of thing. It was against one of the top. It was a team that was the top. And it was intense and it was packed, and it was a lot of fun. They won it was close the whole time up till the end, and then they kind of pulled away at the last minute. But that's what you hope for. My son said it was the best game he's ever been to, so that was good.
Good on him.
Yeah.
Good. Whew. All right, mate. We hit the hour, so why don't we'll
Sounds
get out
good.
of here. I love this. I love we're doing an hour every week. It's very good. We got the consistency. You and me both struggle with that, so we're getting there.
Yeah,
mate.
I was laughing. I was like, our numbers aren't that bad. Imagine if we would have been more consistent.
I could always be in life if I did more. I see those YouTubers stressing about that shit, and I feel sorry for them, man.
I know, me too, man. I'm like,
just chill, bro.
I don't want. I understand, and because the same thing. It's like my YouTube channel the last 2 weeks has been health updates and vaccine comments, and it's just nonsense. So it's like now I'm finally ready to get back there and do some normal stuff, and I'm just gonna laugh because my channel's gonna go back to the normal 2,000 views, which I love. That's what I'm like. I'm just like I don't actually need this much attention on a normal basis. It's actually more of a frightening thing than just doing a normal thing. So
do your karma. Karma is good. So I got to admit, you rode the karma right a little bit because you were like, okay, I'll tell people about it and I'll get a few more views and talking about the health updates. But now what's going to happen? You're going to cut those. All the same wacky people are going to be around going, CRT. He's talking about critical race theory.
Yeah,
they are going to launch. You invited those people into your house, dude. Now they
totally.
No,
and the funny thing is half the time I'm like this. I would comment 1 out of 1,000. I'd be like, this video is not for you. Please leave. Run away. Go away. It's like, what do I need this for? You're not actually trying to learn about this stuff. So anyway, but hey, it's fine. It's all fun. That's the fun part of being a YouTuber. You never know what's going to happen.
All good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening again to the Cathode Ray Tube. Follow Steve. Remember, Steve's got the Patreon as well. If you want the CRT advice, we're going to learn more about that. Get in the Discord community. Follow his Patreon. Follow me on Twitter. We love it. Thank you very much. See you next time.
See you next time.